Talking to my wife the other night. I said, "You're bloody useless, you are. You've got no belly button, you've got no breasts, you've got nothing." She said, "Get off my back."
Peter, how accurate do you consider Forsyth's image as Svengali?
Well, it has been suggested from various sources that Bill Forsyth is something of a Svengali figure. This image has probably arisen from his use of naive actors. When I say naive actors, I mean people that haven't trained, haven't worked to be actors, but are interested in acting. People like the kids from the Glasgow Youth Theatre, etc. People who haven't had a formal training. And I see myself very much in that tradition. That's possibly I'm one of the few people left from that tradition. Not that I went to the Glasgow Youth Theatre or anything, but I am a naive actor. I haven't been through the gamut of training and whatever. And I'm about the only one, apart from Gordon Sinclair, who's working on this film. I don't think it's fair to say that he moulds people. Svengali type guys are guys who are supposed to, I suppose, find innocence and metamorphosize them or be a puppet master of great strength and ferocity and order them to do things, etc., and to make them do things they don't want to do. I think what he does do is that he sees in people, he has the ability to see a certain trait of character that he might then go and write about. That he might say that person there did something, the way they worked, the way they looked, the way they reacted to a situation is the way I think one of my characters would do that. There is a degree of moulding. I mean, that's what direction is, isn't it? I mean, to be a director, you have to gradually mould and bring a performance out of somebody. But it's certainly not a kind of Svengali thing. I think he just looks around and sees people. If he thinks they're going to work, if he thinks they have a part of their character that will suit his film, then he will use them. I think it's very fair, it's very honest, and it's worked very well up until now. I hope. I was playing at that time is October last year. I was playing in a band, one of our new wave type bands, and also doing a stand-up comedian act, which was bombing all over the place. And people used to throw money and oranges and things. But he, for some reason, probably by accident, saw me doing that. And he came up to me one night in October, and he said to me, "What are you doing in the summer?" Which is now. He said, "What are you doing in the summer?" And I, being a kind of generally unemployed type of guy, I said, "I don't know, whatever comes up." And he said, "Well, would you like to be in a film?" And I said, "Well, yeah, sure, okay." But I thought because, he was drunk, well, a little, under the weather, sorry, Bill, I thought I can forget about that. But a few weeks passed and the telephone started to ring and this whole thing emerged. They took me down to London and did film tests at Brace Studios and all this, and we had to go through a whole process of learning bits and pieces of the script, and it was a long, long wait. I didn't really find out until about 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before we started filming, that I was actually doing it. So it was a pretty nervous.
What of the first time you stepped in front of the camera to do an actual shot? What's your recollection of that?
The very first shot that we did on this film was me stumbling over some sand dunes, hard on the heels of Burt Lancaster and his cronies, or the guys that are working for him. And that was all I had to do. I just had to crawl over there. The camera was miles away, and it was all very unreal, It was, in a sense, crawling over a sand dune was a good way to start, because you didn't have to bother about acting it. You just had the problem of crawling over a sand dune. So the whole kind of acting thing went onto a subconscious level. You weren't bothered about that. It was just getting over the sand dune until your spot on time. So that was okay. Luckily, in this film, the first couple of days of filming we had they were more or less mute shots for me, in that I just kept quiet and stood in the background, which gave me enough time to become accustomed to all the commotion going on all over the place. And I didn't open my mouth until Thursday of the first week or something, so that was quite good. Even then, I was fairly tense. But everybody in the unit and in the film is great. I mean, they do the best that they can to relax you. That was my biggest problem at the start of the thing, was being too tense. But now, thankfully, I'm relaxing a great deal more.
A lot of people think it's a kind of snobby thing. Like, once you've got a bit of recognition, maybe in Scotland, the thing to do is move down to London, and that's bad. But it's not really. I mean, you really do need to make the move to get more work. And plus, my voice as well. I need to do some work on my voice so that it opens more fields for me. It means I can do a lot more things, in acting. So it's not a kind of snobby thing. I don't like my accent or things like that. It's just something you've got to do.
My screen test was a bit of a funny experience because obviously I'd never been involved in anything like that before. But what happened was they very, very quickly organised it so that it was so fast, really, I didn't know what was happening. They booked me on a flight from Glasgow that left at the shuttle that leaves at 7 o'clock in the morning. I got to go down, do all this business at the studios, Bray Studios, where they used to do all the old Hammer horror movies. Then I had to fly back home to Glasgow. That sounded okay. But the thing was, nobody knew that I'd never flown before. I'd never been in a plane in my life. So the whole experience of going to the airport, getting on the plane with all these executives with their briefcases and suits was all totally new to me. And the actual flight itself, it was wild. And so by the time I got off the plane at Heathrow or Gatwick or whatever it was, I was absolutely hyper like that. Really, really tense. And then we're straight into our car and we're whooshed off to the studios. And, I'm out like this. And we started doing some scenes down by the river because I've got some relations with a mermaid girl in this movie. And so we were down at the river at Bray. And I came out and I was acting all over the place, like this dead big and useless. They must be the most ridiculous looking pieces of footage around. I'd love to see them if I can get a hold of them because I was so like that. But luckily in the afternoon we went inside the studio and there was an actor there called Dennis Lawson who's in this movie. And he's got a wonderful kind of calming tone about him. And we were actually doing a scene inside his dining room. And thankfully, because of his calming tone and his kind of professional manner, it brought me down to the right level. And I think it was probably that little scene that we did that got me the part. To walk onto the set and see somebody like Burt Lancaster, who up until that time you have only seen in movies and on TV, it's quite wild because the whole experience becomes like a film itself. Although he's there in the caravan next to you or on set with you, for that period that he's there and you're working with him, it's reality. But as soon as he disappears and you think about it, you think, well, it wasn't really real. It's like watching a film, It's like watching a movie all the time. There's a kind of constant strain about the whole process of movie making. In that, like we have here, we have sound over here and camera here and lights. And everything is really dependent, in a sense, upon my behaviour here. And similarly, it's the same when we're shooting the movie, except I'm playing a character then. And so there's a certain amount of strain about, am I going to mess it up? Or am I going to say the wrong lines? So my first impressions of the whole thing, the whole business of filmmaking is that it's very big and there's lots of money in it, and gee, I love this business.
In what ways has Lancaster helped you, if at all?
Well, it's very difficult to try and state the amount of help that an actor like Burt Lancaster can give somebody like me, because in the first place, I'm in total awe of this legend, and that he should even be speaking to me in the first place. I feel it's to be a totally ridiculous situation. But he is a very professional actor. Apart from the fact that he's a star and a legend, he's a professional actor that likes to rehearse, he likes to work things out. Now, for me, who's coming into this business fresh, and this is my first film, those basic processes of acting are not things that I know a great deal about. But Lancaster knows them inside out. But he's still very open and very warm and free about helping me, about saying, does that feel good for you? You know, this is what I would like to do, says Burt Lancaster. This is what I would like to do. Does that suit you? And in observing the way that he breaks everything down, just watching him work is help, in a sense. It's like learning from him. But he's a nice guy, you know. He's doesn't go around saying, I'm Burt Lancaster, hey, look at me, big star, or anything like that. He helps you all the way. It's great.
Peter, how do you define the difference between communicating as a stand-up comedian and as an actor in films? The adjustment of disciplines.
Well, what I did before I worked on this film was a kind of stand-up comedy act. And obviously there's a very big difference between what you do on stage dealing with an audience and what you do in front of a film unit of 100 or 120 people or so. When you're on stage with the audience, in a sense you're facing, it's conflict, you know, a lot of the time. It's you versus... I did a gig with Spandau Ballet, the band, in Brighton, and there were 4,000 kids there. Now it's a totally different situation when you walk onto the stage by yourself to face 4,000 kids for 15 minutes. That's real heads down, no nonsense, you know. You've got to really, really work and battle to get a hold of them, and a lot of the time you lose. But with film, you're there as part of a team, really. I mean, you're just one tiny little cog in this whole mechanism, which is working to try and achieve the final product, which is the film. I mean, the most important thing about this is not Peter Capaldi, it's not Burt Lancaster, it's the film, the finished thing, that the finished film should be a good, entertaining, interesting film. So there's much more a feeling of working with other people, you know? And certainly the sense of conflict isn't there. There's no fighting. I mean, you don't fight with a director or fight with your fellow actors. You work to try and achieve an interesting film. Whereas when you're on stage as a comic, you are really in a little bit of a battle, you know, to try and try and make the audience laugh. Sometimes they don't, but it's life, you know.
What do you see as the next step?
I don't know what the next step's going to be. I want to go on acting. I prefer this to being on stage. Possibly because I haven't been trained in the disciplines and the techniques necessary to sustain a reasonable stage career. I feel as if I would be much happier working in films because there's more money involved. No, that's not true. I enjoy the process of filming a lot more than I do that conflict with the audience. I know that's wrong. I know there shouldn't be a conflict, but when you're learning like I am, it often happens. What I would like to do is after this movie, between the period between the end of this shooting and the release of the movie, I'd like to do some training. Not drama school or something like that, because all you lovely people out there in drama school, you wouldn't let me in. Don't you remember that? I hope they do. I hope you're sitting out there and you remember that they wouldn't let me in, you see. I don't want to go there. Drama school's horrible. Don't go near it. I want to go and do acting. I want to do workshops, things like that, so that I can extend my field, if you like. I want to change my voice as well, so that I'm not limited to purely Scottish things. I want to be able to run the gamut, as it were. It'll be a lot of work. I'll need to do it because when you're in a movie like this, which is a big movie, I guess people will assume things. People will assume that the role that I'm playing is a marvellous piece of characterisation that I must have strived and worked for using all my techniques as an actor. It's really that the character is so close to me that Bill Forsyth, the director, felt rather than get an actor to play it, we might as well get the real person to do it, I think. That's the kind of impression I get. But I don't want to go on playing Danny Olsen all the time. I want to move on to other things. So it will be training, an extensive period of training. And watching people like John Sinclair, who made... John Gordon Sinclair, that's his equity name, who made such an impact in Gregory... Oh, sorry. Who made such an impact in Gregory's Girl. I learned so much from him I'm going to get some spots next week, which I've learned from him, and big ears and everything. I thought...
22, take 1. Second board.
Second board. Is this us in action now? We're being professional guys now, acting.
Do we take a little drink?
No, this is professionalism here with the drink.
Professional acting here.
This is Don Sinclair, who... Remember the guy that was in Gregory's Girl? He looks very much like him. Very similar.
I'm his brother.
I've enjoyed the shoot very much so far. And
What?
me. You want us
to each other?
To each other. Hello, Don. Pleased to see you, Don, baby.
Mr. Peter Capaldi.
How have you been getting on?
Mr. Robert De Niro.
How's your... Robert De who? How's your career been going?
Burt Lancaster. Chunk.
Since your performance with all those people in Gregory's Girl?
Bomb. Bomb.